Like, share, and subscribe because it is free.
The crystalline chamber aboard the Kethvar observation vessel hummed with energy that spoke of desperation. For the first time in 3 millennia, the High Council had convened an emergency session. 12 beings of pure thought housed in translucent shells arranged themselves around the quantum decision matrix, their forms flickering between dimensions as anxiety disrupted their normal cohesion. Elder Ziwaxra materialized fully into the primary reality plane, her crystalline structure pulsing with urgent bioluminescence. The weight of her words seemed to bend space itself as she spoke through harmonic resonance that bypassed the need for crude vocal cords. We have a problem that threatens not just our mission, but our very understanding of biological evolution itself. The vessel they occupied had remained hidden in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter for 2 centuries, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it invisible to human detection systems. From this vantage point, they had cataloged every human transmission, analyzed every technological development, and calculated every possible outcome of human expansion. What they had discovered defied every model in their vast computational networks. The Kethvar had earned their position as galactic gardeners to methodical precision. Across 47,000 years, they had identified and eliminated 847 emerging civilizations before they could spread beyond their home systems. Their method was elegant in its simplicity: observe, analyze, manipulate, and guide each species toward inevitable self-destruction. They never needed to fire a single weapon or reveal their existence. They were death disguised as coincidence, extinction wearing the mask of natural selection. Elder Mordetha's form shifted to display the statistical analyses that had kept them awake for the past solar cycle. The data stream showed probability cascades for every species they had previously encountered, each one following predictable patterns toward extinction once the proper pressures were applied. Economic collapse led to resource wars. Technological advancement without wisdom led to weapons that exceeded control. Social divisions, when properly nurtured, invariably resulted in civilizational suicide. But humanity broke every model. The psychological profiles alone were enough to drive their artificial intelligence systems into recursive loops. Humans simultaneously demonstrated the capacity for breathtaking cruelty and inexplicable kindness, often within the same individual. They created weapons capable of planetary annihilation, then established treaties to prevent their use. They poisoned their own environment while simultaneously developing technologies to heal it. They waged wars over trivial ideological differences while cooperating on projects that spanned generations. Elder Vexander materialized a 3-dimensional representation of human conflict patterns. The holographic display showed 200 years of careful manipulation designed to push humanity towards self-annihilation. Economic manipulation had failed. Humans responded to scarcity by developing more efficient resource utilization. Political manipulation had backfired. Attempts to deepen ideological divisions instead triggered counter-movements toward unity. Even biological warfare had been counterproductive. Pandemics that should have collapsed human civilization instead accelerated medical advancement and international cooperation. The most disturbing aspect was human unpredictability. The Kethvar had developed algorithms capable of predicting species behavior across millions of variables. Yet humans consistently chose options that their models classified as impossible. When faced with existential threats, they chose cooperation over competition. When presented with zero-sum scenarios, they invented alternatives that benefited everyone. When logic dictated surrender, they found ways to transform defeat into victory. They are not following any known pattern of intelligent evolution, Elder Ziwaxra continued, her form now pulsing with frequencies that indicated profound unease. Every attempt to guide them towards self-destruction has instead accelerated their development. They have become stronger, more resilient, and more dangerous with each intervention. The true horror was becoming clear to the assembled council. Humanity was not just another species to be pruned from a galactic garden. They represented something unprecedented, a form of intelligence that grew stronger under pressure, that found unity in adversity, and that seemed incapable of accepting extinction as an option. The intervention had begun subtly, as it always did. The Kethvar archives contain detailed records of their influence on human development spanning 2 centuries. They had whispered inspiration into the minds of weapons designers, nudged economic systems toward instability, and guided political tensions toward inevitable conflict. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand had received their careful orchestration. The stock market crash of 1929 bore their fingerprints. Even the Cuban Missile Crisis had been their attempt to push humanity over the nuclear threshold. Elder Mordeth accessed the manipulation protocols with growing frustration. The Kethvar had perfected the art of species elimination through manufactured catastrophe. They would identify critical pressure points in a civilization's development, then apply precise influence to transform progress into destruction. A whispered equation to a physicist here, a planted document in a politician's briefcase there, a carefully timed natural disaster that seemed random but struck at precisely the moment to maximize civilizational damage. With humans, every intervention had produced the opposite effect. World War I, designed to demonstrate the futility of human conflict, instead accelerated technological development and led to international cooperation frameworks. The Great Depression, intended to collapse human economic systems permanently, resulted in more robust financial institutions and social safety networks. The nuclear standoff of the Cold War, meant to trigger global annihilation, created a terror so profound that humans established treaties to prevent their own extinction. The Kethvar had escalated their efforts. Direct manipulation of weather patterns to create devastating famines had instead spurred agricultural innovation that ended hunger in entire regions. Attempts to spark resource wars over petroleum reserves coincided with humanity's sudden pivot toward renewable energy sources. Engineered pandemics that should have collapsed medical infrastructure instead accelerated vaccine development and global health cooperation. By the dawn of the 21st century, the Kethvar Council was no longer subtle. They began orchestrating multiple simultaneous crises, convinced that overwhelming pressure would finally break human resilience. Climate change was accelerated beyond natural rates. Economic bubbles were inflated to unprecedented sizes before being catastrophically burst. Ideological divisions were amplified through manipulated information networks. Regional conflicts were stoked into proxy wars that threatened to engulf entire continents. Humanity's response defied every prediction model. Instead of fragmenting under pressure, humans began forming unprecedented alliances. The climate crisis that should have triggered resource wars instead sparked the largest cooperative effort in human history. Economic collapse that should have led to societal breakdown instead produced new models of sustainable development. Information warfare that should have destroyed democratic institutions instead created more sophisticated systems for detecting and countering manipulation. Elder Vexandra's form flickered with disbelief as she reviewed the latest intelligence reports. The International Space Cooperation Treaty had just been signed by every major human power. The Global Climate Response Framework was mobilizing resources on a scale that dwarfed their projections. The Universal Healthcare Initiative was sharing medical advances across all human populations, regardless of political boundaries. The breaking point came with the asteroid threat of 2029. The Kethvar had carefully guided the trajectory of asteroid 2029 XK7 to create an extinction-level event, confident that the approaching disaster would trigger mass panic and civilizational collapse. Instead, humanity mobilized every available resource to develop deflection technology. Nations that have been enemies for centuries shared research and resources. The successful deflection mission became a catalyst for permanent space-based cooperation. The Kethvar were witnessing something that challenged their fundamental understanding of intelligent life. Every manufactured crisis had made humanity stronger. Every attempt to divide them had ultimately united them. Every effort to guide them towards self-destruction had instead accelerated their evolution towards something the Kethvar had never encountered. A species that treated extinction as a problem to be solved rather than a fate to be accepted. Elders of Yxtara's harmonic frequencies shifted to frequencies associated with species-wide terror. The hunters were beginning to realize they had been teaching their prey to hunt. The surveillance data streaming into the Kethvar observation vessel painted a picture that violated every principle of controlled species development. Human expansion beyond Earth had not followed any predictable pattern. Instead of the slow, methodical colonization typical of emerging spacefaring civilizations, humanity had exploded across the solar system with paranoid urgency that defied rational resource allocation. Mars now hosted 17 self-sustaining colonies with populations exceeding 2 million. The asteroid belt swarmed with mining operations and manufacturing facilities that operated independently of Earth-based supply chains. Europa and Titan supported research stations that had evolved into permanent settlements. Most disturbing of all, 3-generation ships had already departed the solar system, carrying human genetic material and cultural archives beyond any possible Kethvar intervention. Elder Mordeth analyzed the expansion patterns with growing alarm. Human paranoia about existential risks, artificially heightened through decades of Kethvar manipulation, had triggered an obsessive drive toward redundancy and survival. Every manufactured crisis had convinced humanity that their homeworld was fundamentally vulnerable, spurring frantic efforts to establish backup populations across multiple celestial bodies. The technological evolution was equally unprecedented. Constant artificial pressure had accelerated human development far beyond normal species progression curves. Their quantum communication networks were immune to interception, using entanglement principles that the Kethvar themselves had only recently mastered. Their artificial intelligence systems demonstrated pattern recognition capabilities that could detect manipulation attempts across vast datasets. Most concerning, their biotechnology had advanced to the point where humans could adapt to any environment within a single generation. The deep space monitoring arrays were the final confirmation of Kethvar failure. Humanity had not just spread throughout the solar system. They had developed detection technologies that were actively searching for exactly the kind of hidden observation posts that the Kethvar operated. The quantum resonance scanners could identify artificial gravitational anomalies. The neutrino detection networks could track cloaked vessels through their reactor signatures. The distributed surveillance grid could triangulate the position of any artificial object larger than a spacesuit anywhere within 50 astronomical units of Sol. Elder Vexandra's form pulsed with frequencies associated with species-wide panic as she accessed the latest intelligence briefings. Human deep space monitoring had detected the Kethvar fleet movements at the edge of the Oort cloud. Worse, intercepted communications indicated that human intelligence agencies had developed theories about external manipulation that were disturbingly accurate. References to puppet master scenarios and manufactured crises appeared regularly in classified human documents. The prey had become aware of the predator. The realization struck the assembled council like a quantum collapse. Humanity had not just survived their intervention. They had evolved into something that could challenge Kethvar's supremacy. The distributed nature of human civilization meant that no single catastrophic event could eliminate them. Their technological advancement had reached parity with Kethvar capabilities in several critical areas. Their expansion beyond the solar system meant that even complete sterilization of their home system would not prevent human survival. Most terrifying of all, humanity appeared to be preparing for contact scenarios that included hostile alien intervention. Military installations throughout the solar system were positioned to defend against threats from beyond Earth's gravity well. Weapon systems capable of accelerating projectiles to significant fractions of light speed were under construction in the asteroid belt. The generation ships carried defensive capabilities that could theoretically threaten even advanced alien civilizations. Elder Zhuaixthra's harmonic resonance dropped to subsonic frequencies that indicated profound dread. The gardeners had not just failed to prune this particular species. They had accidentally cultivated the most dangerous form of intelligent life the galaxy had ever produced, a species that responded to extinction pressure by becoming impossible to extinguish. The decision to make first contact was born of desperation rather than diplomacy. The Kethvar High Council had exhausted every alternative scenario that did not end with their own extinction. Their cloaked observation vessels were being systematically detected by human scanning arrays. Their manipulation networks had been identified and neutralized by human counterintelligence operations. Most critically, human expansion had reached a point where military confrontation would be catastrophic for both species. Elder Zhuaixthra initiated the contact protocols with the resigned certainty of a species acknowledging defeat. The Ketvar fleet decloaked simultaneously across 17 locations throughout the solar system, broadcasting universal peace signals on all frequencies. Their message was carefully crafted to present them as benevolent explorers who had recently discovered humanity and wished to establish diplomatic relations. The human response was immediate and terrifying in its implications. Within 6 hours of first contact, every human military installation had achieved combat readiness. Defense platforms throughout the solar system had powered-up weapon systems that registered energy signatures equivalent to stellar phenomena. Most disturbing, intercepted human communications revealed that contact protocols had been in place for decades, suggesting that humanity had been expecting this moment. The diplomatic meeting was arranged in neutral space near the Lagrange point between Earth and Luna. Elder Mordeth led the Ketvar delegation aboard a vessel specifically designed to appear non-threatening. Its organic curves and bioluminescent displays intended to convey peaceful intentions. The human delegation arrived aboard a ship that radiated quiet menace despite its diplomatic markings. Its angular hull and concealed weapon ports speaking of military engineering disguised as civilian technology. The humans were worse than the Ketvar had feared. Ambassador Chinwei's opening statement demonstrated that humanity had not only detected the manipulation attempts, but had developed countermeasures that had been quietly implemented for decades. Economic models that accounted for artificial interference. Political systems designed to resist external influence. Scientific research programs specifically focused on detecting non-terrestrial technological signatures. But the truly terrifying revelation came when Ambassador Chin presented evidence of human awareness. Classified intelligence reports dating back 50 years had identified statistical anomalies in global events that suggested coordinated external manipulation. Human intelligence agencies had developed operational theories about hostile alien intervention that were disturbingly accurate. Counter-manipulation protocols had been implemented that explained why recent Ketvar interventions had been increasingly ineffective. Elder Vexandra's harmonic frequencies shifted the patterns associated with existential dread as she realized the full scope of human preparation. The distributed military infrastructure throughout the solar system was not just offensive. It was specifically designed to counter the kind of advanced alien civilization that the Ketvar represented. Human weapon systems could target objects moving at relativistic speeds. Their quantum communication networks could coordinate instantaneous responses across interstellar distances. Their artificial intelligence systems could process threat assessment data faster than biological intelligence could react. The war was over before it had truly begun, but not in the way anyone had expected. Ambassador Chen's final statement represented something completely outside Ketvar understanding of intelligent species behavior. Instead of demands for reparations or threats of retaliation, humanity offered alliance and cooperation. They proposed joint research initiatives to share technological advancement. They suggested cultural exchange programs to promote mutual understanding. They offered to assist the Ketvar in transitioning from a civilization based on controlling other species to one based on collaborative growth. The ultimate horror for the Ketvar was not human vengeance, but human mercy. A species that responded to attempted genocide with offers of friendship represented something fundamentally incomprehensible. The Gardeners had spent millennia eliminating threats to galactic stability, only to discover that the greatest threat was their own inability to recognize when a species could transcend the need for elimination through cooperation rather than conquest.